Now we can get into this nice young gentleman's clothes. So we're going to go ahead, mainly white. There's still a little brown in there, which is fine. We want that. We'll start with the sleeves. This brush is pretty soft, so it doesn't leave a very thick layer of paint. But we don't want a very thick one because we want it to dry quickly. So we don't have to wait to add our highlights and shadows. Uh-oh. And just get in there in your finger and blend it. That. Background is dry and the paint you just put in isn't, so you can lift it right off of there. Okay, now we can clean off the big brush. I'm going to go in with this slightly angled brush here. Those you don't want to beat around on the inside of the bucket quite as hard when they're small. And I'm just going to go in here with the white right on the edge. Straighten that outline a little bit more. Okay. Now we still have the shadow part. And that watercolor showing through, and that's fine. It's fine and dandy. Makes our life a little bit easier when it comes to putting in the shadows for the creases and folds that happen in these old shirts. The first thing I'm doing here this color. Maybe thinking to yourself, that looks a little thick for a crease. And that is on purpose. There's shadows around the creases. Then you come in. Then you put in your sharper lines. Maybe even add a little shade right by the outside of those bibs. Add a little bit of that over here. Blend this out a little bit more. Clean this brush. And then we're going to take that liner, take brown, and a little touch of black. About even amounts. Then we can come in and add the actual crease. If you're being a dum-dum, putting a crease in before the shadow. Well, just grab your shadow color. Okay, next, now that we got our shirt about done, we can go in and add some more highlights and texture once the base coat is fully dry. We're going to go in and color in these overalls. We're going to take most of the brown with just a little bit of touch of black to dull that brown down a little. I am, if you notice, leaving a little space there. That's because there's some stitches. And the stitches show up. I think I need to wet the palette again. Who knew that painting canvas on canvas could be a little bit of a pain like that? Okay. Try to avoid that where you just paint it as much as you can. Go over with them. See, when you get too much, that's what happens. But we're going to turn some lemons into lemonade here, I think. Because you're going to want a good base coat on your overalls. Normally you don't want much water in your acrylic because it can disrupt the polymer bonding process. Acrylic forms kind of a honeycomb shape with the acrylic polymers when it dries. And too much water can break that. But since we'll be painting over this, automatically adding film, we'll be filling in some of those gaps when we get to our next coat. It should be fine. All I'm doing here is getting as much of that water off the canvas as I can so it can dry a little bit. And we'll even some of it got run down on my canvas board there, which we don't want. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take a short break. Just give that watery base 10 to 15 minutes dry, and then I'll be back. All right, and we're back. First thing I'm gonna do, no, we don't want you. Take one of our little 1/4-inch brushes, dry it out, go into the white, and I pulled that color up a little too high. This should just be a shirt, so we're just gonna go in, add that white back in. We'll have to add a few layers to fix that. Not a big deal. Get as much texture out as you can. Okay. Clean your brush. Even out the base there. Okay. Now, take a little brown over here again. Black, more brown, a little more brown than black. Get it good and mixed. Start filling in these overalls. Going up here by the shirt, just some shadow. And what I'm doing this time, to avoid that thing with the water, causes it to run, is I just spritz a little bit of water right straight up on to my palette paper. And if you feel like it's not enough, like where it's breaking there on the edge, spray a little more in there. Go ahead and pick up some more color. Then come down and fill her in. Should give you a nice, smooth pull on the paint when you're pulling across. Light is hitting it from this side, so the shadow on this side won't be as dark. In fact, there almost won't be a shadow. You can also just dip it in your cleaning water to thin the paint up a little bit. There we go. Once you have your edges filled in, you can go ahead and grab your big old 1-inch brush. Dampen a little, shake most of the water off, but you want a little bit on there. You can go ahead and come back in here. And if you get some color breaking, don't mix it on your palette paper quite enough, or your palette, whatever you're using. Just run over it, up and down, left to right, right there on the canvas to blend it. It's all right if you have a little bit of breaks in there, a little bit of uneven. When you come in and you add your highlights, it'll cover some of that up. It won't. Nothing is quite even. Okay. All right. Take that. Take one of your little brushes again and make sure it's clean. And a little more white paint. Probably not that much, about that much. We're just going to go over the shirt again. Very softly. Try not to leave any texture. It's a little darker than the rest of the shirt. That's fine. It's a little further back. There's going to be some shading that happens in there automatically. Now we're going to go ahead and come on here and color in our colors. Collars. Color in our collars. Not color in our colors. That doesn't make sense. All right. Yep. Just close the image again. There we go. All right. Take your liner, dip it in the water, shake most of it off, just go right into that white. No, we're adding in here. It's a little stitch work. And if you have little breaks in your stitch work, that's a good thing. It's quite all right if it's a little uneven. Dip it in the water, shake it off, get a little more paint. Gotta have a little area for the pockets in these overalls. Pull across the top. Again, if you get breaks in there, don't worry about it too much. Stitches, so they shouldn't be completely even. Dip, shake. All right, now we're gonna go in and add the pocket flap. be not quite halfway across. And we gotta add one more layer of stitching. So got that in there. Now we're gonna add some little highlights. We're gonna take just a couple touches of white into that brown and black mix. Get almost a gray color. Make sure you don't have too much on your brush. Ever so gently. I always like to start when I'm adding these highlights in a slightly smaller area. Helps me make sure the color's right. Now that we have that in, we can just go and add little bits of highlights here and there. And we're using this foliage brush because it automatically adds some texture. These are denim overalls. So we want breaks in our texture there. Now, clean that foliage brush off. Take a little 1/4 inch. Get some black again. Black and brown, but you want a little more black this time. You want it to be a little bit darker. Not dark enough. There we go. That should work. A little bit along the bottom here. A little bit in here. We'll go ahead and add a little right here as well. Want to add a little by your stitches, that's fine. Okay. I think we're about done on the denim there. Though if you want, you can take that foliage brush again. We'll add a little brown, a little white to our shadow color just to make it offset a little bit. Get most of that off. And then if you want to just pull up on some of these a little bit, add a little more texture to that denim. That's a little too light. Yeah, I think we'll need a little on this pocket. There we go. I think that'll do just fine. Need your liner brush again. It's more of that white. And a spot for a button. If you're a little shaky on this, that would actually make it a little better. The thick stitch, we want it to look like a thick old stitch in there. All right. Now, back into that white. A little bit of the brown and the black, if you can. Got a button here that we're going to paint in. And again, this is something that might take multiple coats to get to look how you want. So we're just going to start with a quick one. All right. Then you can take that liner, that shadow around the outside of that button. Maybe even just put in a couple holes. Now we're going to take a stiff angle brush and just some chisel brushes, could be called too. Touch, or just get a touch brown on one of the corners. There we go. Most of that off, that's too much. Get it just a little in there. If you get too much, just add more white. Okay. Get our liner again, a little bit of that same denim color for the overalls. Add a little thing there. Go ahead. Little sharper lines at the top. Another button on the shirt there. Another shadow coming out of the button. Mix a little white and brown. Down from the corner there, and add few shadows there. We're going to add a touch more brown. Dip. There we go. That's better. Some creases, a little crease, a little shadow. Add a little more life to that. Speaking of shadow, we need white, brown, little spot that's a little darker. A few lightly darker lines in there. Get it? A little more brown. Then we got a good black line there. So go into that denim color. Pull your brush flat into a chisel. Get that. Shadow I'm missing up here. Okay. Now we got a little corner here we got to touch up. So I'm going to get that brush good and clean. Go into some white. And these shadow edges are a little sharp, so we're going to work a little bit of white into there. That button paint's a little wet still, but we're going to go ahead and try and put a little dollop of white right in the middle where the thread is. Gotta have something. Keep that button tied down to the shirt. Alright. So I'm just gonna try a little, there we go. A little straight black cut across there for the shadow. One of the last things we're gonna need here, a little white with the liner brush again. And the buckles on the straps. Not going to show very well against the shirt. So, I'll get some gray. A little bit of brown, mainly gray. On the shirt, we're just gonna, not quite dark enough. A little more black in there. And we'll just pull a little shadow across for that buckle. Go back into the white on this side. All that gray again. I'm getting pretty close to done. I think I'm going to do a few more things on the hair up here. More shadow in some of these spots, a little more darkness, a little more contrast. I'm gonna come up here. I need a little bit of. That ain't gonna work. We're gonna use a slightly larger brush. Get it damp. Get the color on there. And then just cut down. You want to get a little water in there. And still break it a little bit, and we don't want that, so. There we go. I think we need just a little shadow on the edge of the ear. Wouldn't hurt to have a little up here either. Just to separate it. All right. Got a few more things I want to do here. Very simple, very quick. Around the eyes. I just feel it's a little too dark on the bottom of the eyes. Quick mix, a little brown and white. A little more white. There we go. And we're just going to come in. Cover that up a little bit. Same as in the corner up here. There we go. I feel like those teeth might be a little too bright. A little more brown mixed in with that. There we go. Get our liner brush again. Make sure it's clean. Okay, now I'm gonna take our foliage / hairbrush, go into that skin color we have. And just right at the hairline, we're gonna pull up a little bit. And get a little more highlight in there, yeah. feel like that's a little too bright. Not the same color as his head there. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something. If you were just looking to relax, I hope I was helping you with that. If you fall asleep before I got done painting, don't worry, I won't be offended. But I hope to see you again soon, my friends.